Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the limerick today, and I'm going to teach you some of the rules, some of the conventions of the limerick form, and then you're going to have a go at writing one yourself. So what is a limerick? Let's have a think first. Well, it is a 5-line poem. It's usually funny, or it's supposed to be funny. The first rule is that lines 1, 2 and 5 should rhyme. The second rule is that lines 3 and 4 should rhyme, the end word of each line. And then the rhythm or the meter of the poem uses something called an anapest. It's anapestic, and I'll talk about an anapest in a moment. So what do we think about meter? Well, meter is another term used for the rhythm in poetry. It's probably a better term to use when you're analysing poetry to talk about the meter rather than the rhythm, although they are interchangeable. In many ways it's what most closely links poetry to music. I like to think of poetry being the meeting of words and music together, and many lyrics of songs have a very poetic quality, so there are really major links between poetry and music. And the most important thing about meter is that it can speed up a poem, it can slow it down, and it can be used to emphasise certain words or phrases. So when you're analysing poetry, don't overlook meter. It's a very, very important part of poetry analysis, which is often overlooked when we write about poetry. So what about an anapest? Well, let's think first of all about what we mean by an iamb. Now an iamb is the most common form of meter. It's probably the first one anyone learns, and it's the de-dum, 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 and it's an unstressed beat followed by a stressed one. You can hear that again. De-dum, 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 and the stress is on the dum. De-dum, de-dum, de-dum. Now an anapest is where we have two unstressed beats to one stressed one. De-de-dum, de-de-dum. Again, the stress being on the dum. De-de-dum, de-de-dum. And you can hear that in limericks. What I'm going to do just before we finish is I'm going to show you a short film, and it's a little limerick, and it's a limerick about limericks. So think about what we've just talked about. If you need to watch this through again just to remind yourself, that's fine. But when you come back into the classroom, I'm going to be asking you to write your own, so be prepared.
Here to teach you a fun little trick. To have a good time when writing a rhyme, try writing your own limerick. There are limericks of all different kinds, so how do you write one that shines? You'll see that it's cool if you follow the rule. A limerick is made of 5 lines, so listen close to this song. Lines 1, 2 and 5 are all long, and in poems of this sort make lines 3 and 4 short, and I promise you'll never go wrong. You need to be sure and contrive to rhyme lines 1, 2 and 5. Then do it once more with lines 3 and 4, and your limerick surely will thrive. So let these pointers take hold, and if you'll write as you were told, at the rainbow's end you'll find there, my friend, your own limerick pot of gold.
So there we are. 1, 2 and 5 rhyming, 3 and 4 rhyming, and using that dee-dee-dum, dee-dee-dum rhythm, and may the luck of the Irish be with you.